Welcome back to the final episode of the All or Nothing League. My name is Kasabi. We're going to go through the playoffs, the awards, and the final festivities for the All or Nothing League. Just kind of do a wrap up for the series. Really no points, maybe simulating this past season one. We've already kind of seen a whole lot of what we need to see. From here on out, it's just a few attributes kind of going up or down, but the gameplay is going to be essentially the same. So last time we played, we had the two power teams going at it for that final wild card spot. We've reached the end of the regular season, so before we get into the postseason action, I'm going to go ahead and simulate to the end of the regular season, and we're going to take a look at some of the awards and also some of the playoff matchups. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the batting and pitching leaders. So contact versus left, no surprise. They had one guy that was at 460 for batting average, only a few others that were above 400. This guy was quite an anomaly. Pretty basic. You have a lot of contact versus left and right players at the top of the batting average. For hits, the Joe Random that batted 413, not the batting leader, had 288 hits. So this guy must have been at the top of the order. Surprisingly, the guy who had 460 for his average only had 206 hits, which is not even in the top 10. At bats, there were some players that were in there for over 600 to 700 at bats. This guy right here batted 397 with 283 hits for an average just below 400. Not much for extra bases though, doubles. You have some guys from the contact team that were able to get 30, but not very high. And interestingly enough, this is from the blocking team, so the catcher team with no other hitting incentive led the league in triples. Home runs, you had a few power versus left and right guys leading the way. Again, only about 30 home runs, so extra base hits were not very common in this franchise. A lot of singles for a lot of the hitting teams. RBIs, Jesus Christ, we have guys with over 200 RBI. This guy had 288 hits, I didn't even realize, but one of the guys batted 413, had 288 hits and 233 RBI. He also struck out 184 times. Wow, that is incredible, and we do have a few disciplined guys in here as well, so they got quite a few hits. Look at the walks. Oh my goodness, they got as many walks as they did strikeouts. Let's take a look at another guy here from the discipline team. He actually had more walks than strikeouts, but was still over 200 for both of them. Runs scored, again, a couple over 200. Stolen bases, we're going to have to look at the other league, but we had 14 or 15. Base on balls, again, a couple guys over 200. On base percentage, some guys were getting on base 50% of the time, including this guy from the contact versus left team who hit 460, of course, but the rest are pretty much from the discipline team. And slugging percentage, a couple guys from the contact team on top, followed by some power hitters. OPS, a few guys over 1.00. Pitching wins, we had a couple guys get close to 30 in the American League, and then the National League, 35. Quite a few saves, surprisingly. Some guys had 30 to 40, and for the hits per nine team, there Joe Random had 61 saves, which is pretty close to the record. Not many people qualified for ERA. There's only 10 players across both leagues, and the lowest is this 3.22. For the K per 9 team. Only 5 shutouts occurred the entire season, all of which were by the Stamina team, go figure. Strikeouts, K per 9 team leading the way, a couple guys over 300 strikeouts. This guy from the Stamina team had 230. Innings pitched, nobody cracked 200, closest was 195. Only 6 qualifiers for whip as well, and the leader was 1.4. Strikeouts are weighted really heavily in this game, so pitching more. This guy had a 7.1 pitching more, 14-3 record. 321 strikeouts, pitched basically an inning per game. And batting war, contact versus left team, the guy who batted 460 had a batting war over 10.7. Actually forgot to look at extra base hits for the speed team, so they were actually some of the leaders in extra base hits. They had 40 doubles in a couple of cases, triples. Nobody cracked 10, but 9 is still pretty impressive. Let's take a look at some awards. So Joe Random from the contact versus left team beat out his teammates. This guy, again, 200 runs, nearly 300 hits, 233 RBI, and a batting average over 400. In the National League, we had some pitchers. This guy went 35-5, and they stack pitching wins a lot in this game towards MVP and Cy Young voting, but ultimately, strikeouts are king, so this guy had a very low ERA, great record, and 315 strikeouts. I think that definitely shows that he was way more effective, although this guy, 2.94 ERA is pretty respectable. I don't know what they're thinking with this guy. He had one more win, 4 more strikeouts than his other teammate, but his ERA was nearly double. So as such, the Cy Young voting is the same as the MVP voting in the National League, American League. Cy Young, Joe Random, 28-2, 3.55 ERA. almost a strikeout per game. Batting title again, a couple guys over 400. This guy batted 460. Tops in the other league was from the Knuckleball team, batting 346. Nobody qualified for the Reliever of the Year award in the American League, but over here in the National League, we do have a couple guys. The guy with 51 saves beat out the fellow from hits per 9 team with 61, but his ERA was much more impressive. Let's see what his whip was as well. .77, not bad. The rest of the awards I'm not too worried about because they're all rookies. Slugging's basically the same as what we've already looked at. Let's go ahead and look at the Gold Glovers though. How many Gold Glovers did the fielding team have? So we have this guy from the fielding team who won the Gold Glove at first base, third base, shortstop. Nobody qualified for the outfield though. So 3 Gold Glovers from the fielding team. And even then, their fielding percentage about 970 in most cases. So that'll do it for the awards. Let's give a look to the playoff matchups, starting with the American League. So power versus right team just narrowly eked out the power versus left team to make the wild card. They're playing the contact versus right team. They're divisional foes. Winner of that plays the contact versus left team. So a lot of the offensive categories are going to be playing each other in the first round. Meanwhile, you have the fielding team versus the discipline team on the other side of the bracket. Looking at the National League, the durability team beat out the Knuckleball team with 7 straight wins to reach the playoffs. They play the walks per 9 team. Winner of that plays the best team in the league, the hits per 9 team. And then you have pitching clutch versus speed in the other matchup. I would probably give the edge to the speed team. They were one of the most unstoppable teams from the non-pitching and hitting categories. I guess you could kind of say speed leads to both offense and defense. So I'm just going to sim a few days at a time and we'll give a look at some of the playoff matchups and how they go, starting with this Saturday right here. Got to fix all these things first. All right, so we're through the first few rounds, and as expected, not a lot of competition in some of these matchups. Contact versus right beat the power versus right team, and they were the better wildcard team, as was the walks per 9 team versus durability. Surprisingly, though, the speed team actually lost in 4 games. That was the only series that wasn't a sweep, and pitching clutch won by a margin of 3-1. Hits per 9 team beat the walks per 9 team. Contact versus left beat contact versus right. Discipline team versus the fielding team. So really that was the only upset, is the pitching clutch team, and that was the one I just banked on a few minutes ago would be probably one of the easiest sweeps. So for the Championship League Series, you have contact versus left versus the discipline team, the 2 best teams in the AL, and then you have hits per 9 versus pitching clutch, which hits per 9 was the best team. I forget, how did the pitching versus clutch team finish this season? I guess they won 98 games. I mean, that's still pretty impressive. Speed team, though, won 107 games, so there was a 9-game difference between those 2 squads, which in the speed team was on an 11-game winning streak leading up to that. So good job to the clutch team, I guess, clutch pitching team, for pulling the upset. Again, only went 4 games. We'll go ahead and simulate to the next round. All right, and there's your World Series matchup. You have the hits per 9 team taking on the discipline team. 2 teams that's just really had amazing seasons. Discipline, probably, again, the best on-base percentage team in the league. Contact versus left gave them a run for their money. So this will be interesting. I mean, the discipline team isn't wired to get hits. They're wired to get walks. And the hits per 9 team, you know, they'll eliminate all the hits that the discipline team might be able to get. And I'm kind of looking at this and thinking that the hits per 9 team probably has the advantage, because that's something that plays out in game quite a bit. In simulated play, discipline means how much the batters are taking pitches or not. And once you get into the game, it kind of more progresses into how much they're able to like lay off pitches, but also like check swing a bit. So this is definitely an interesting matchup. You have a team that doesn't give up a lot of hits versus a team that primarily tries to walk over getting hits, or like, you know, get the best pitches they possibly can. So looking back at the championship series though, hits per 9 team beat the pitching clutch squad 4-1. So I simmed to Halloween night, which is about the day that it is when I'm recording this, and the discipline team has actually taken a 3-0 lead over the hits per 9 team. I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the box scores. As you can kind of see here, they're close games, 4-3, 6-4, and 9-1. But let's get a look at some of the more complexities of each game, maybe how many walks and hits they got. So as you can see, they won this game 4-3, but only got 4 hits. So the hits per 9 team did their job in preventing some hits. 3 runs in the 8th inning, so they had a late rally. And as you can kind of see at the bottom of this chart, they had 4 hits but 12 walks. So ultimately 16 base runners plus the error That's just going to create a lot of runs when you get people on base. Even though the hits per nine team had more hits as an offense, they only drew 6 walks. They had 15 base runners. It was very even. Game 2, another late inning rally, 5 runs in the 9th inning. Wow, so they just completely stormed back from a 4-1 deficit. 10 hits in this game, couple errors by, well, their team, one by the other team. Maybe it was a costly one to end the game. But again, you see here 10 hits, 9 walks, so a lot of base runners. And the hits per 9 team, when they were on offense, were efficient. I guess they had that large 7th inning, but ultimately only 11 base runners. And in Game 3, a thorough domination. They took an early 8-0 lead, and then they traded a couple runs back and forth later on in the game. So 7 hits for the hits per 9 team and 3 walks, 10 total base runners, plus a couple errors. Disciplined team, though, drew 13 walks. I'm guessing a lot of them were early on in the game, so they just kept kind of going through the order and getting a lot of opportunities. So, wow, this has kind of been impressive to see. I mean, the hits per 9 team has given up maybe just a few less hits than like their opponents who don't have any pitching qualities, but the disciplined team's ability just to gain a bunch of walks, get on base, create some offense, it just really shows how important it is to get on base. That on base percentage is king in this league. And that's kind of what the Moneyball type of statistics are showing. Like, it doesn't matter if you're hitting or walking, as long as you can get on base one way or the other, you will ultimately win more ball games. I'd be very shocked though if the hits per 9 team, although this series has been kind of tight, comes back from a 3-0 deficit. So we're just going to go ahead and do a watch party for Game 4 of the World Series between the Discipline and hits per 9 team. Get a look there at the records again. Hits per 9 team, 126 wins. I guess I'm kind of blocking it here. 126 wins. ERA below 2. Absolutely impressive. And the Discipline team, it's not really going to show anything important there. They had 110 wins, 277 average, which is pretty good. ERA about league average, but just the amount of walks, it's not going to show up on here. We're back at low variable field for the final time, and it's still going to be at daytime. They don't have nighttime games here at MLB 21 as of yet. We're still on an old build. So World Series Game 4 during the daytime. We don't have much of a choice between the Discipline and hits per 9 team. Dragging my face away here. They have some special World Series theming. I actually haven't seen this in MLB 21. They changed a lot for MLB 22. But not much of an introduction. Here's Joe Random from the Discipline team during the postseason. Not very impressive. The scorebug's really nice. It's got some more gold trim and everything compared to what we've seen with the other games. And here we go. Hits per 9 team in whites. They kind of have the Tennessee Volunteers type of look. Discipline team in black and white. This is one of the few matchups this year where both teams aren't wearing black. It's 51 here today on a bright, sunny day on Halloween day. I think this was October 31st when we loaded in the game. As we're watching the final Game 2, I just want to mention how much this series took to build. We had to build the stadium, build all of the teams from scratch, put all of the players at 0 aside from the attributes that they showed here, which is primarily why this series took so long. And we're still on MLB 21 as there's a strikeout to begin the game. So do I wish this series was a bit more interesting and entertaining to watch in terms of the gameplay? Absolutely. I mean, this was something that has never really been done before or explored, and we had no idea how much the game was going to break. We didn't know if this was going to be like a secret base type series where they just kind of like break the game. There have been some fun ones. It has been kind of frustrating to see them bunt so much, and as soon as we saw Game 1, it was kind of evident that there was going to be a lot of bunting and sacrifice attempts no matter what we did. But it's also kind of interesting to see the stark differences between, as there's a fly ball into right field, it's going to land for a base hit, but it was kind of interesting to see the differences between like the simulated play and what we see in game. Simulated almost seemed more interesting just from all the box scores and everything that we came across, including that like 200-0 game. As there's a successful sacrifice, 2 outs now with a runner on second for the hits per 9 team. That's what they're looking to do, manufacture a run and then shut down the opposition with their pitching prowess. Their cleanup hitter Joe Random is batting .000 in the postseason. There's a fastball left up in the zone. Center fielder didn't get a good read on it, and as a result, that's going to score a run here in the first inning for the hits per 9 team. That's been kind of the big issue is the hits per 9 team. There's been a couple games in the series where they scored early. They just couldn't hold on to the ball late. There's another single up the middle. And that's kind of what they need to do is set the tone. If they're going to do the reverse sweep, get some runs early and be able to hold it this time. They've blown a couple late games in the 8th or ninth inning. And then game 3, just everything was kind of a total loss. 9-1 blowout. Gave up runs to the opposition early and never really looked back from there. So if they can just kind of dogpile on the starting pitcher, work their way into the bullpen, I mean, especially in the postseason, stamina was a lot of an issue during the regular season because you had day-to-day games. And now that you're in the postseason, you have a lot of off days, you have a lot of travel days, so there's a lot more rested pitchers out there, and they're not going to be tired and give up extra pitches. You kind of have to work for your offense a whole lot more. 1-2 count, swung at a bad pitch, his last pitch, and now has us back against the wall. Can they get more runs here? Takes the high fastball for ball number 2. Next pitch is a dot. Might have been off the plate just a little bit, but the disciplined team will get out of the inning with just giving up 1 run. But still a big run for the hits per 9 team. They need to work their way back in this series as they take the early lead in the top of the first. There are the stats for the starter here today for the hits per 9 team. 8.1 innings and only 1 run given up here. Quite a few walks though, so gotta be careful, especially against a team like this with the disciplined team, as we see our last substitutions for the year as well. They always replace the guys at second base to start the game, and I still have no idea why. First pitch is popped way up into the air into right field and caught for out number 1. So disciplined team, not very disciplined there, just going after the first pitch. Maybe they like something that they saw. But this is the first time I believe that we've seen the disciplined team at work as they go after another first pitch. What are they doing? Another lazy pop out to center field. 2 pitches, 2 flyouts so far. There's another look at the postseason bracket. Again, the disciplined team looking for the sweep today. But yeah, I mean, this has not been the type of ball game that they've wanted to kind of go forth with in terms of game management. You give up the early lead, and now you're swinging at literally the first 2 pitches. There's a smart take. Don't want a 3-pitch inning. That one not really the best pitch to swing at either. It was on the inside part of the plate. That one, okay, that one I give to him is right down the middle. But a 4-pitch inning, each of the outfielders left, right, and center with a fly ball to them for the out. And it's a 1-2-3 inning for the hits per 9 team as they look to build on their lead into the second. And again, after this game, we'll go over some last thoughts and just kind of overall wrap up on the series, what we learned from some of the simulated play. We'll look at some of the teams as well, see if there's players that kind of grew more in certain attributes than others, if there was something that kind of contributed to a player's growth and development in the franchise sphere. We did see earlier there were a couple instances where people had like negative attributes, and I want to learn a little bit more about that. There's a diving attempt in right field that's off his glove or maybe even his face for a leadoff single. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm not really going to be able to kind of comment on just because I'm not a game developer and I'm not really sure how certain things work. Again, the bunting has been constant, the sacrifice attempts, some of those negative attributes. And in some cases, the differences between the in-game play and the simulated play can be a lot different. So I'll do the best I can to kind of justify the ends to the means. But this has been a pretty crazy franchise. Again, I wish it was just a little bit more entertaining with some of the gameplay. I guess you kind of have that to some extent when you have a lot of zeros on the field in terms of certain attributes for like the product that's put on the field. We got to see a good style of different matchups though. We had like power teams, speed teams, pitching teams. So they were a bit different in their own right, but there were a lot of similarities as well. Just a lot of constant, here we go again type of stuff. As there's a strikeout for out number 1 for the disciplined team. Good off-speed pitch at the bottom of the zone. I'm going to report some of my findings to the other guys here at Showzone. Again, I'm just a content creator. Thought this would be something very interesting to kind of see as there's a pop out to the first baseman on the bunt attempt. But the other developers here at Showzone are always working tirelessly to kind of get you more development, different card information and how like they're actually built, more of an inside look. We'll never get like the full scoop from the development team at San Diego Studio, and obviously we can't, but we'll try and get it as close as we humanly can. And some series like these really help out because we can kind of learn a little bit more about how the game works, add that to our neural networks, and make some good decisions from there as there's a ground out to first base to end the second inning, or the top half of the second inning. Disciplined team hoping to maybe get some more base runners and not swing at the first pitch all the time. While we're on the topic too about like building cards and like gaining information and all that, one thing we really can't control in this series is there's a swing at the second pitch again, which is another lazy fly to right field, the 4th of the game. One of the things that we're not really able to control to some extent are some quirks. Like there are some that once you reach a certain threshold, get added, like platoon hitting, for example. But there's a lot of things in franchise mode that we're not able to directly control, such as active quirks and like certain bonuses that players get after a while. So that's something that you really can't control and like work on learning. You just kind of have to deal with some of the cards in Diamond Dynasty that have them or not, but like you're never going to really have a control variable. And that's what this franchise was kind of aiming to do, like try and put everybody on an even playing field and see what we're able to learn by having certain teams stick out from others, perhaps. This is the longest at-bat for the Discipline team, and after pitch number 4, we get another fly out to center field. Each inning has started the same, a fly out to right, fly out to center. Will the next guy fly out to left? Be funny if he did. Only 10 pitches for the Hits-per-9 team so far. The thing is, if you can't get the starting pitcher tired and kind of work him into more walks, but this guy, I guess, has gotten the best approach today. 2-0 count here. A lot of when you force walks are when the pitcher isn't very settled in or starts getting late into the ball game. So if you keep swinging at all these first pitches and not getting a good read for the pitcher, just from like a baseball IQ standpoint, like you're not going to really obtain a lot of offense. So he's worked it to a full count. This is exactly what the Discipline team needs to do going forward. Here's the pitch, fouls it away. That was a strike, so good pitch to swing at. And that one was a swing and a miss, a bit low out of the zone, but he went after it anyhow. And 2 scoreless innings here for the Hits-per-9 team. And again, for those of you watching, this is likely the end of this series with this final wrap-up. We've been kind of trying to plan it out where it kind of is in tune with the actual baseball season. So we're doing our World Series right around the same time the actual World Series is happening. Game 3 was just played at the time of this video, so right now the Phillies have a 2-1 lead over the Astros. And if there are any other avenues that you'd like us to take for franchise mode, we would love to do something in the off season, perhaps with MLB 22, as there's a single out to center field to lead off the top of the third. With the addition of this created stadium, it really just helped because we have variables that we can control, such as the weather, fence length, I guess, like the dimensions of the stadium. So with a franchise like that, that's very important. It's better than like having everybody play at Coors. So there's a bunt to the second baseman. For out number 1, they get the runner into scoring position. But yes, there are some different variables with stadiums that you really can't control, and it's kind of hard in simulated play to control all that if you just list this stadium as everybody's home field. Otherwise, in franchise mode, they would just play at the stadium that the team was replaced during simulated play, and I can't play a full season's worth of games for all 30 teams. So that's kind of what made this franchise possible. There are a lot of variables that you need to control. The stadium was a great one, as there's a ball in front of the catcher. He throws to third and gets the out, so Hits-per-9 team maybe running themselves out of the inning. Only 1 speed over there at second base after he just bunted them into scoring position. And now they'll have to reset here with 2 outs, try and get something out of this inning. They do have a 3-1 count now after the missed ball. There's a chopper to first base, and he's just going to take this one himself for the final out of the third. So Hits-per-9 team got the leadoff single, sacrificed to try and make something happen, but ultimately get nothing after the attempt to take third base. They still have 5 hits though. Discipline team looking for their first. They'll have the bottom of the order, 7, 8, and 9. Hits-per-9 team appropriately has not given up a hit so far today. While I actually have a moment, I'm going to take a look at the stats and see how much contact these guys have gained over the course of the season. I don't know why it's showing the Hits-per-9 team while I'm on the Discipline team, but there are some guys who have gone way up in terms of their attributes. This guy has 11 contact versus right, 6 versus left, but for the most part a lot of 2s and 3s. So working away on base and into hitters counts does give you quite a bit of an attribute boost versus like contact, for example. A lot of these guys actually have some outliers like 7, 11. If we compare that to the Hits-per-9 team, like pretty much their highest is 4 or 5. So working the count actually does lead to a lot of contact, a lot of opportunity, and we can kind of see it here. All right, so back to the gameplay. And he takes a great breaking pitch on the inside corner for the strikeout. Wouldn't it be something if we saw something historic in the one game that we decided to spectate? I'm not going to jinx it any further from here, but wouldn't that be something? Especially down like 3-0, like it would be funny if they just had that and lost the next game, or maybe that's what spurns like the comeback, the 4-game reverse sweep. If we ever saw that in World Series history, I don't think we'd ever hear the end of it. There's a ball that's down the line, but going to be foul. Worked his way to 2-2 again. Here's the next pitch. That one maybe on the inside part of the plate, has to slap it the other way. Not the best pitch to put in play. It'll be up to the pitcher, who is 2 for 3 here so far this postseason. And he grounds one immediately to second base. Throw on to first is true, so 9 straight set down by the hits per 9 team. The one thing, though, is this game, I mean, I would imagine that the hits per 9 team would be susceptible to giving up a lot of walks and or errors with some of the fielders that are playing the field. So perfect game would be absolutely incredible if that were to happen. I know I just said it out loud, but the likelihood of that happening is not very good. But based on the team name that's on their chest, the other one is still very much possible. As we've kind of saw with the other 3 games in this series, a lot of scoring early on in the game, and then the middle innings, like pretty much nothing ever happened. It wasn't until the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning that we started seeing scoring again. So there's a fly out to center for out number 1 here in the top of the 4th. So I would not be surprised if we didn't see much scoring, and then like once we maybe get like a pitching change or something for one of the teams. I don't think the hits per 9 team is going to pull their pitcher anytime soon, but in the case that they do make a pitching change, like sometimes that confidence boost or lack thereof, like bringing somebody in out of the bullpen, can kind of affect things, and that's another variable that we really can't control. You can turn off pitcher confidence, I think, while you're playing the live game, but I still think it factors into simulated play, at least when you're watching a game like this. Hits per 9 team taking a lot more pitches than the discipline team, though. 55th pitch of the day is taken for ball 3. Full count here to the second batter of the inning, the number 6 hole, Joe Random. That one's right down the middle, laced down the right field line. That's going to drop. Oh, he's going to try for 2. Just lackadaisically runs into second base. I didn't think it had enough steam to try and push it towards a double. 2-2, down in the zone. It's going to be chopped back to the pitcher, so no advance at the second base runner. And that's going to be a pitching change. He had 62 pitches through 3 2/3 innings, and now they give it to Joe Random, who's 3-0 so far in the postseason, been pretty locked down so far. And he'll try and get the final out here of the 4th inning. Again, a lot more bullpen arms to work with, and immediately gives up a long home run out to right field. Oh my goodness, that's where the pitcher confidence I had talked about comes back into play, and they paid for it dearly. It's a 3-0 lead for the hits per 9 team. They now have a great cushion to work with the pitching performance they've gotten to this point. First pitch, right down the middle, fastball that he just laces into the seats. 365 feet, and all of the no doubt home runs seem to just go over the fence in this field. Like I always am impressed to see, like, oh wow, how far did that go? And it just sneaks over the wall. So the discipline team kind of in tatters right now as the pitcher's up to the plate, and he'll get his cuts in with 2 away here in the top of the 4th. And they have come back from a similar deficit like this one before in the series, but they do have some work to do, especially getting their first base runner. Pitcher chases that pitch for the strikeout and out number 3. Back to the top of the order for the discipline team, 29 pitches through 3 innings so far. That curveball was nowhere close, so a good take there to start off the at-bat. Again, the discipline team started to take a few more pitches. They've worked their way into a couple 2-0 counts. But the pitcher, for the most part, aside from this one, he's just really off to begin this inning. We'll see what they do here with the hitters count 3-1. Here's the pitch. Good pitch to swing at, bounce to shortstop. Can he make the throw over to first? Yes, he can. And the leadoff hitter is retired in the bottom of the 4th. Good comeback there for the hits per 9 pitcher. Starting to give up a few more grounders, though. The first 2 innings, he got a lot of flyouts. The infielders are a bit more prone to making some errors in the field, perhaps. 2-2 count to the 2-hole hitter. Here's the pitch. Nearly got that bottom outside corner, but taken by the discipline team. And for the second time this inning, a 3-ball count for the discipline team. Here's the payoff pitch. That's going to be popped up. He had to fight that one off in the top inside corner. First baseman has a play for out number 2. And another pop out, perhaps to the first baseman. Chased that one a bit. And 12 straight batters retired for the hits per 9 team. They take a 3-0 lead into the 5th inning. And again, back to the top of the lineup for the hits per 9 team. So some of the guys that you get the most at-bats with, they do have perhaps a few more contact attributes. Not by much. Like you might have those guys with 4 or 5 contact at the top of the lineup as opposed to like 2 or 3. Your chances, while minimal, are maybe a bit better of getting on base. Again, this reliever, as soon as he came in, first pitch was a home run. Gets the pop out to second base there to start the 5th. Ooh, there's a fastball left down the middle again, but not much power on it. It's going to be a long fly ball out to the right fielder, but an out nonetheless. 2 away here in the top of the 5th. Got the 3-hole hitter down to an 0-2 count. Let's see if he's able to get the last strike and get the 1-2-3 inning. And high fastball goes from the off speed in the dirt, raises the sight level, gets the strikeout. It's a scoreless top half of the 5th inning. And we're back to the 4-hole hitter for the disciplined team, trying to get something going here in the 5th inning. Takes a strike. 2 straight pitches on the outside part of the plate. Batter not able to do anything with it. Now down to an 0-2 count. And again goes for that outside corner, misses the changeup just barely. See if he goes right back to the same part of the plate. He does. Batter doesn't have an answer, and a strikeout for the hits per 9 team, his 3rd of the game. Just an absolute dominant performance in that last at bat. 4 straight pitches, the same part of the plate. Says, I know you can't hit it here. Gets the strikeout. Nearly got the called 3rd strike on the changeup too. And again, at the risk of jinxing things, we're starting to get close. He's about halfway through the game without giving up any base runners. There's a swing to miss for an 0-2 pitch. The fact that he's able to do this in a series clinching game after the discipline team has been able to blow him out last game and come back for the wins the last couple games. Maybe they just kind of show up late. Who knows? But you would think you have this other team on the ropes, like a pitching performance like this, or maybe on the flip side, a batting performance like this is just so surprising. That one's taken right down the middle for strike 3. 1-1 pitch, taken high for a strike, and now he's a strike away from striking out the side here in the bottom of the 5th inning. Next pitch, swung on and missed, an off-speed pitch in the dirt, and he's through 5 innings, strikes out the side. 15 in a row set down for the hits per 9 team. But now we're in the top of the 6th hit per 9 team with a good 3-run cushion, but they have a chance to add to the lead here. Maybe let their starter settle in even more. Disciplined team still warming up a few guys in the bullpen. And to this reliever's credit, he gave up a home run on the first pitch, but had a scoreless top of the 5th inning last time out. Maybe is starting to settle into the game a bit more. And only 16 pitches to this point. These relievers, they're all starters. They usually can go anywhere from 40 to 60 pitches at the maximum before they get completely burnt out. And I have no idea what the other pitchers are like in terms of their stamina or energy from earlier in the series. There's a pop up to center field. Fielder couldn't get a good read on it and lets it drop right in front of him. It's a base hit to lead off the 6th inning. With these guys' lack of contact and stuff, there's just a lot of that kind of dink and dunk pop-ups like behind the infield in front of the outfielders that can lead to base hits. There's a bunt attempt. He's going to go to second, and it pulls the second baseman off the bag. And now I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another bunt attempt here to get runners onto second and third with only 1 away. Indeed, he squares up for the bunts. This one goes to third base. It's going to stay on the line. They're able to get the out at second, but not at first. That one for sure I thought was going foul, but it stayed on the line for a fair ball. Maybe bunted a little bit too hard to the third baseman where they're able to get one of the lead runners. But again, a 3-run lead, and now you have a runner at third with only 1 away, so a sacrifice fly here perhaps gets you a 4th run of the ball game. Swings at that first pitch. It's a good line drive, but foul. Double play is not very likely. I mean, the fielding is not great. First you have to line one on the ground, and that one's a line shot out to the outfield for a base hit. It's a 4-0 lead. Runners at second and first. I would be shocked if he put up a bunt here with 1 away and 2 runners on. Maybe get a couple more guys into scoring position. After hitting that home run, they're going to let him swing away. And a curveball taken up high for a strike. So I'd mentioned earlier, double play ball, not very likely. There are some grounders sometimes, but the arm strength, fielding reaction, it's very tough. Oh, there's a diving attempt at shortstop. And the second baseman could have just leaned over and picked up the ball. They do get the out at second, although it's not the guy I expected. Just the likelihood for them to field the ball, throw it to second, and throw it to first with their ability is not very likely. Now the pitcher will have a chance here to maybe add on to his lead with runners on the corners and 2 away. It'd be funny if he ended up getting more offense than the other team that he's pitching against. There's a strike. Not sure what the pitcher is looking at there, or the pitcher at the plate. Ends the 6th inning, so the hits per 9 team does get a run. 1 costly error for the disciplined team as well. That might have led to that run, but regardless, 9 hits so far for the team, 4 runs scored, and now the pitcher goes back to work for the 6th inning, up to 56 pitches, so he's about on fumes, or will be by the end of this inning. There's a fastball way up high for a ball. This might be where the disciplined team is able to work their way into more hitters counts or draw some walks. There's another ball. Changeup inside misses for a 2-0 count. It's just once you get into a hitter's count and he starts attacking the zone, if he's able to get one that they swing at, and there's one out to left field, that's definitely going to be the first hit of the ball game. It's out to the fence, and there goes the no-hitter and the perfect game. Runner will get a double here to lead off the bottom of the 6th inning. That's the thing. Sometimes you fall behind in the count as you get tired, so some of those swings, his hits per 9 kind of acts as a security blanket. Other times you leave a fastball right down the middle that could be lined for an extra base hit. 8-hole hitter will swing away, not showing bunts, so they're not playing for one here. They're going to try and at least get something, some momentum going. Ooh, that curveball nearly buckled him and got the bottom corner, but it is a ball. So a full count here to the next batter in the 6th inning. Runner on second. See what they do here with the full count. And he just misses with the fastball. A good stone cold take. 2 pitches in a row. First the curveball, then the fastball. Now down to a 2-2 count. Can he finish off this batter and get the first out of the inning? Here's the pitch. Another off-speed pitch that he's early on into the seats. Fastball, he's late on that one, so early on the off-speed, way late on the fastball, spoiling off some pitches, making that pitcher work here in the 6th inning. Already 15 pitches so far this inning, and he's not gotten it out. Here's the 2-2 again. Changeup, man, he's just so close to getting some of those strike calls, but the discipline team here in the 6th inning with some stone-cold takes. So here's the full count. There's a fastball down the middle. He's late on it again, but it's going to sneak between the left fielder and the center fielder. All of the runners are going to advance. They're going to send the second runner home, and there is a 4-2 ball game. Discipline team coming alive here in the 6th inning. Left fielder didn't get a good read off the ball. I thought he might have had a chance if he took a direct path to it. Instead, just let it scoot past him for a 2-run double, and that will end the day for the starting pitcher. So they bring in a righty, 4-2 deficit, tying run at the plate, and now they're going to play for one. Pulls it back, though, almost gets hit by the pitch. This is smart. You have some momentum going for the discipline team. I guess you could swing away here with a runner on second and nobody out, but if you can bunt that runner over to third and have 2 chances to get it home from third with 1 out, bring the deficit back within 1, that's a smart approach as well. So it was a successful sacrifice, and now it's up to the 2 and 3 hitters to maybe make something happen here, get that 3rd run of the inning home, and that'll do it. There's a changeup right down the middle of the plate. It's bounced to shortstop, but since it's at a middle infielder, will do the job, and the discipline team pulls back within 1 here in the bottom of the 6th inning. This would be a clutch time for maybe like a tying home run here in the 6th inning, just really complete the comeback all at once. But we've seen this earlier in the World Series, the discipline team scoring late in the 7th, 8th, 9th innings, this time in the bottom of the 6th. And now they're only a run or 2 away from sweeping the series. Gets him on the strikeout there, though, so not this inning. We'll go to the 7th inning. Hits per 9 team narrowly escapes. They still have a 1-run lead. Leadoff hitter for the hits per 9 team, 0 for 3 so far today. Looking to get something started here, maybe get some of those runs right back in the top of the 7th. That one, yep, left down the middle of the plate, lined into center field for a base hit to lead off, and now the hits per 9 team can play for 1 here. Maybe go back up 5-3. 2-hole hitter was 2 for 2 earlier, was unsuccessful in his last batting attempt here. We'll see if they let him swing away or bunt that runner over. My guess is the bunt, and yes, they will. That one's going to be to the first baseman. He's going to try for second again. Last time pulled off the bag for the error, but this time is able to make the throw, and it is a unsuccessful sacrifice. He'll try again here, 1-1. Fastball low in the zone. It's going to be to the pitcher who throws on to first. So this time they do get the successful sacrifice, but now have some work to do with the runner at second and 2 away. It'll be up to the cleanup hitter, Joe Random, 1 for 2 so far today. But after giving up 3 runs last inning, getting a run right back here is something that they've not been able to do and reclaim the lead in some of those instances. That one nearly could have been extra bases, but lands foul on the grounder just to the right of the first base bag. Now down to an 0-2 count. It's going to have to battle here to try and get himself on base. Takes a fastball just off the plate. That one he actually goes after on the outside part of the plate. Pitcher is able to knock it down, throw on to first. If it got past the pitcher, that was definitely a run, but a good defensive play there to keep the lead at 1 for the hits per 9 team. Now we go to the bottom of the 7th. Discipline team has the momentum. We're able to escape from last inning without giving up a run. Scored 3 runs last inning, and now they're starting to have a bit more offensive capabilities. They are facing a fresh arm out of the bullpen, though. And that was where maybe they got a few runs off of that starter as he got tired. They were able to kind of jump on that opportunity. Now you're facing a lot of fresh bullpen arms who aren't going to tire and leave pitches down the middle of the plate. So you're going to have to really work some walks and things like that from here. There's a good fastball in the lower part of the zone for a strike. First pitch swung on, out to left field, maybe just got a bit underneath it. There's a quick out number 2. Not able to really see PCI placements by the computer or anything like that, so I'd be interested to see where that pitch was and where the PCI was. But alas, it is a flyout. It's a lot of what we saw in the first and second innings. A lot of flyouts that they were chasing early on in the count. So he's able to lay off that curveball. Not sure why you'd want to swing at that in the first place. That one's cut on and missed. Off-speed pitch on the inside part of the plate will end the 7th inning. Disciplined team, nothing doing here. After their 3-run outburst in the 6th, we go to the 8th inning. Maybe just a couple innings left in this World Series. Hits per 9 team again trying to stay alive, get the reverse sweep. We're just going to check in on this game, and maybe if it comes down to it, do like a game cast of the final inning in Game 7 if they push it that far. We'll have to see. And again, the season recap to come. We'll look over each team and maybe some of the tiny details that we might have lost throughout the season. There's a pop out to the first baseman for the first out here in the top of the 8th. Yes, we'll look at some of the players, maybe some of their stats and attributes just to kind of see like what all happened throughout this 162 game season, maybe why they were successful or unsuccessful, if their attributes really do much during the simulated play of the season. That's a fastball right down the middle. And again, looked like the outfielder could have made a play on it, but just a bad read or reaction off the crack of the bat, and that's going to land for a single. The hits per 9 team has really gotten a few of those today, just due to poor fielding and reaction. Let's see if they bunt that runner over to second again, maybe get an opportunity with 2 away. It's going to be to the first baseman, and good placement. He's not able to square and throw to second for the opportunity there, so they just get the out at first base. Big insurance run over there at second with 2 away for the hits per 9 team. Here's the 1-1 pitch. It's going to be inside. He wraps it through the hole for a base hit. Here's the throw home. Runner is going to be safe as the throw is offline, so the successful sacrifice and then the hit to bring home the run. The hits per 9 team back to a 2-run cushion, and they'll bring in a pinch hitter for the pitcher. So again, another fresh bullpen arm coming up next inning. Disciplined team's going to have their work cut out for him. There's another one lined into the gap, and this could be another run if they send the runner all the way from first. Right fielder not even going after it. Center fielder is going to get it in, and by the time he throws it, the runner is already rounding third. The hits per 9 team is back up to a 3-run lead, and they have a runner at second with 2 away for another potential run. Hits per 9 team getting the momentum back and maybe staying alive. Disciplined team has to score 3 runs at least with only 6 outs to work with. So can they work their magic again in the late innings, or will this go at the very least to a Game 5? The pitch. Bounce to third base. It scoots past him, and again, could have made a play on the ball. They're not. And this one is going to lead to another run. It's 7-3 now for the hits per 9 team. A 4-run 8th inning. Yeah, they're not going away quietly, that's for sure. After a blowout in Game 3 and losing the leads late in Games 1 and 2, now they decide they're going to try and put up a fight here in the late innings. They do put up a few insurance runs, and now it's up to them to keep a 4-run lead. Blown a couple in the past, like I mentioned. They get another run or 2 out of this inning. I mean, that would just really put the ball game away, I would think. There's a ball that scoots by the catcher, and the runner will move up to second base. So full count, runner would have been off on this pitch anyway. Here's the 3-2 to the 2-hole hitter. It's on the inside part of the plate. He pulls it out to right field. It's going to land in front of the right fielder. Here's the throw home. It is offline again. Runner's going to second. It's trying to advance, but it's going to be thrown out. So kind of a lackluster end to the inning, but they do score 4 runs, 15 hits for them through 8 innings. And the plate discipline team, oh, it's not looking good for that sweep. Their mantra, their ability is to take pitches, work a walk, get on base. They've been swinging very impatiently at times, maybe more so early on in the game. Is that going to land? Left fielder gets there. That would have been a fair ball on an 0-2 count, but puts it away. And now the hits per 9 team, just 5 more outs to get. Here's the 2-2 count. That's going to be out to left field. Another lazy fly ball. Left fielder has had a couple opportunities so far this inning. Puts that one away for out number 2. Pinch hitter for the pitcher. It's Joe Random, who's batting .538 so far this postseason. Riding the bench, though. Next pitch is going to be out between second base and right field. It's going to be short enough, though, where the second baseman's going to take it for the out. And we go to the 9th inning. Hits per 9 team already with a 5-run cushion. Could add a few more runs here, but just need 3 more outs to get. That one's going to be in on the fists, and again, another ball that drops in front of the right fielder. Outfielders for the Discipline team just been having a rough time today. That's going to be bounced up the first base line. No play at second. They're just going to toss it on to first. 2-2 count. Likely will have to put a swing on the ball. See if he finds a hole here. And he will, out to the right side. Right fielder's going to have to make a play again. This time, throws to home plate, and the runner smartly holds up at third base. So runners at the corners with only 1 away. Maybe if you could get something that could be chased on the outside part of the plate. I think that would be the smartest pitch. Instead, they go for the high fastball on the outside part of the plate. It ticks off the catcher's glove and a run scores. Other runner advances. Probably going to go out on a limb here and say this game 4 is over and done with. I have been impressed by the amount of offense, though, that the hits per 9 team has been able to achieve so far today. Is that one going to land in front of the right fielder? He dives for it. It ticks off his glove. Runner was already going from second, but is going to hold up at third. Throw in is going to be cut off by the pitcher, but the runner at first will take those extra 90 feet out to second base. So second and third here with 1 away. That right fielder just can't catch a break over there today. It's ruled a single and an error on the throw since the batter advanced to second base on that. And now the next pitch. Oh, glove by the first baseman. So he does keep the runners at bay with that one. There's another one that sneaks past the catcher. It bounces off the back of the wall behind him, though, and comes back to home plate. So the runners hold there. Maybe some of those World Series late game jitters. I mean, the Discipline team at this point, probably not super amped up. It is a 6-run game, and that single up the middle will make it 7, perhaps 8. Here's the throw home, cut off, and then thrown. Not in time. So 2 runs score for the hits per 9 team. It's 11-3 now. There's another one out to left center. Center fielder is going to make the catch, so no 20th hit here today. Discipline team. Long road back. They need 8 runs to tie it here. Only 2 hits to their credit so far today. And just a disappointing effort here by the Discipline team. You had a chance to clinch the World Series with a sweep. And you scored those 3 runs back in the 6th inning to make it a 4-3 ball game. It was close again, and just completely got away from him here in the last 3 innings. Swung at the first 2 pitches here again, not being very disciplined here in the 9th inning. Maybe you just cut your losses, swing at everything, and then go home. Regroup for game 5. You have 3 more chances here. And swings at the 3rd pitch for a strikeout. 2 outs away here from forcing game 5. Here's the 0-1 to the second batter of the inning. And again, swung on. This one's at least put in play to the shortstop. He's going to have to make a play. Throw on to first, though, is true for out number 2. So 5 pitches, 5 swings, 2 outs so far for the Discipline team. Not exactly what you envision going into the inning. There's a good changeup on the outside bottom corner. There's the pitch. Oh, this one's tagged out behind shortstop. Looked like he got a better swing on it off the bat than what actually happened. But the hits per 9 team will live another day. They win game 4 of the World Series to make it back to 3-1 in the series. And a good showing. I mean, that was a total team victory. Their starting pitcher was perfect through 5. They had 19 hits, 11 runs, 7 of which were late in the game. Just really put away the game from there. And we shall see what their fate is like in the simulation from here. Will they be able to complete the reverse sweep? So technically the Discipline team is the home team for game 5, and then they have an off day even though they're playing at the same stadium. It's just how the World Series works. Let's go ahead and simulate the rest of the way and see what our fate is for the World Series. And Team Discipline does win Game 5 by a score of 9-4. Let's get a look at the box score. They scored 6 runs in the 4th inning, and that was enough. Hits per 9 team made a few claws back at the game late. 3 runs in the 7th inning, 1 run in the 9th inning. A lot of offense for both teams. Hit per 9 team with 13 hits again, but 4 errors. And how many walks did they give up here? They gave up 10 hits and 7 walks, so not really a winning formula, giving up that many base runners. We saw it in Game 4, the hits per 9 team with 19 hits. But Team Discipline is your World Series champion. They take the World Series in 5 games. And I guess the offensive capabilities hold true as opposed to the pitching ones. A lot of the pitching teams had better records at the end of the season, but offensive categories, a lot of getting on base. That is true to today's baseball. It's what a lot of analytics squads are looking at. How do we get runners on base and theoretically score more runs? It does hold true in this simulation. Let's get a look at some of the playoff winners. So Joe Random on the discipline team, I think this was the guy with the highest average or on base percentage, 600 average in the World Series, 5 RBI, postseason MVP, only 395 for this one. And the hits per 9 team, one of their batters with 1 home run, 5 RBIs, and 275 batting average. Pretty lackluster postseason MVP. World Series, I guess you could make the case since he batted 600 in 5 games. So we made it through the World Series. Let's go ahead and give a look at each team, see if we learned anything. Starting with the contact versus left is the first team here in the American League. I do think they got maybe a little bit more of an advantage than the contact versus right teams. Both teams ultimately won a good amount of ball games, but since we had one extra lefty in the bullpen, which is where a lot of the teams ended up going to after about 4 or 5 innings once their starter retired, they did face a lot more lefties, so the contact versus lefty team would benefit a bit more from that. Power, though, for whatever reason, did not see a change. Both teams were within 1 game of each other for the power versus right and power versus left teams, so that ultimately did make a difference, even though they're weighted differently. As you can kind of see here, power versus left, top guy is 19. Power versus right weighed a lot more heavily, 26, and a lot of guys in the 20s. Going next to the vision team, they finished 73 and 89, and we've learned a lot this year that the vision attribute affects your timing at the plate, which can be nice for actual players, human players, but in the grand scheme of things for simulated play, you do have a tighter window if you're only a 0 vision compared to like 99, but if you don't have any contact or power to go along with it, vision doesn't really do a whole lot in simulated play, which is why they only won 73 games. They might have avoided a few more strikeouts and maybe gotten a few more base hits because of it. And I would like to see what this team would do in a offensive division where they didn't have so many other people out hitting them. As such, they were the worst team in this division. 73 wins is still kind of respectable for a seller team, I guess. Make your own conclusion. But again, vision doesn't really help you out too much in the simulated play unless you have contact and power to go with it. Discipline team, kind of touched on this episode already. That is king, getting runners on base, simulated play especially. They're a lot more prone to getting runners on base, but for a human player, discipline doesn't do anything for you. It just helps with your check swings, so this attribute is definitely weighed very heavily computer or simulated play than it does for a human. Yeah, not much else to say for the discipline team. This is like the one attribute which is just a complete flip-flop from live play versus simulated play. Next few teams in this division, obviously bunting and drag bunting doesn't do a whole lot, but they actually fared better than the clutch team. The clutch factor, switch hitters, doesn't do a whole lot for you in simulated play. Again, switch hitting can be great if you're a human player. You can get that advantage from either side of the plate. But if you don't have any hitting stuff to go with it, clutch factor, same thing. It really helps if you're down in a game late and you have some good contact and power to go with it. But in this iteration where everything else is a 0, kind of similar to vision, for example, you kind of need a bunch of attributes together to kind of compound and gain momentum with other things. Even some quirks might kind of help out with that. So on their own, these attributes don't do a whole lot. Fielding attributes, fielding is definitely king, really helps you out. I think this is going to be compounded with speed in like a competitive human play. So if you play ranked seasons or something like that, fielding is definitely going to help you out quite a bit, especially if you're leaving it to non-user chance. I know a lot of you probably have the throwing meter and everything like that, but having better fielding really helps in simulated play, or if you don't want to play that kind of button mini game where you have to time your throws very effectively. Meanwhile, arm strength, accuracy doesn't really get you a whole lot more one ball games than other fielding attributes. Reaction time is also not great. We did see it a little bit there in the World Series where that right fielder, maybe if he had some better reaction time, would have reacted to a few more balls. So having a amplified reaction time only saves you on occasion, as does blocking for some of the catchers. Durability, another one of those that we don't really have to touch on for live players. It's only going to affect simulated play. And they were a 500 team because of it, so it does help to have some good durability on your team to help rest some players, help them perform at their peak, maybe avoid some injuries. We didn't have any injuries in this season. That was one of the variables that I do think helped out a lot more in simulated play if you play franchise, for example. but it does keep your players fresher in ball games during the actual like grind of the season itself. I think speed was one of the attributes that actually helped raise other attributes further in the game. So if you're playing franchise mode and you want to grow players more efficiently or give them more opportunities to, sometimes just putting the ball in play helps, and you can really get some good like contact and power, maybe even vision and fielding as a result of that. So like having good speed really opens up the doors to enhancing your other abilities, and a lot of these players went up significantly. Probably some of the best organic growth we saw for a team in a season. So speed, again, as its own attribute, can help you offensively and defensively, but just putting the ball in play or getting on base can really help your team out. Speed is probably one of the most important attributes in both simulated and live play. As you can see though, the control group was actually better than the stealing team. So stealing ability, aggressiveness literally does nothing for you. In fact, in simulated play, I think it actually hinders you a bit. If you don't have the speed to go with it, you're more likely to go for extra bases or steal a base that you probably shouldn't. It's actually kind of weird seeing all this kind of Moneyball stuff come to fruition. So if you get on base more, you do score a lot more runs. You could maybe win a World Series, but they said in the movie, at the very least, and in the book, that stealing does not help you. You're actually giving away outs. And we can see that with this team right here. Stealing ability, stealing aggressiveness did not do a damn thing for these teams. In fact, it probably lost them more ball games. We go now to the per nines, and as everybody anticipated, hits per nine, the most important pitching attribute, I would say, in the game. Won 26 more games than a 100-game winner. That just really tells you everything you need to know there. Walks per nine is next up. Can be really good for limiting control, but also in simulated play, limiting the amount of walks that you give up, I suppose. Home runs per nine and Ks per nine ultimately don't matter too much. K per nine, I guess you do miss a few more bats if you have a higher attribute, but with like the human level of things, there's going to be a lot of like user input that goes into it, like how effective their swing was. K per nine does a lot in simulated play, gets you a lot of strikeouts, really pads the MVP and Cy Young voting, but you need something to go along with it for it to be successful. Stamina team as well, not really much there. You can work longer into ball games and maybe be more effective, but you need something to go with it. These are like what I would call secondary pitching tiers to go along with some other things to help make you successful. And in the last division, pitching clutch, they won a lot of ball games. I'm still kind of unconvinced at how helpful this attribute can kind of be. It definitely seems to be more helpful than batting clutch. So pitching clutch, you probably want on your team more than batting clutch. But this was a weak division that they're playing against. Knuckleballer teams somehow finished 500. I have no idea if that was just the luck of the draw or if having a knuckleball in simulated play actually works. Knuckleballers are definitely more of a user thing, but kind of curious to see them at a 500 season. But you look at these other ones, control, break, velocity on their own, not really helpful. Maybe control the most because they were close to 500 too. Velocity kind of hinders you unless you have some other things to go with it. So again, kind of like the secondary pitching tiers. So actually one more thing before we progress forward, I'm just going to go to the off season and see how many of these players retire. Like how many of these people, since they're below like a 40 or something, actually retire. Wow, there actually are some players who played a full MLB season, like this guy. 5-2 record, 4.80 ERA. He actually retired because his ability was that bad. There is a whole, wow, how many people actually made it to next season? If we go to the roster though, I think most of the teams still have their full like close to 90 guys that might have been replaced by actual prospects. I forgot if we actually did the draft or not. This is the other reason that we only went one season is we had to take a roster and there was like 99 overall players on one team. This is like some Road to the Show XP glitch. So now teams have a chance to sign these guys. We also have all these guys from like the free agent pool that were like undrafted or unsigned. So we actually have some non-Joe randoms that we have to worry about that might be signed by some of the teams. So that's probably where it's going to end here for this franchise and series. Again, there might be something that we explore specifically in the future, but as far as like the grand scheme of things, we've kind of done what we wanted to do with this series and explored what we wanted to explore. There might just be a bit more like kind of niche stuff that we'll do maybe in a future franchise. But we're back at the Show Zone Lab, and let's go over some of the things that are essential to what you need for a ball player. A lot of this might just kind of seem like common knowledge, but we kind of reinforce this with the series like this or like a team build like this. So first and foremost, contact and power for batters are universal. You need them in simulated play, you need them in online human like ranked play. The higher the contact and the power, the better your team is going to do. And on the pitching side, hits per nine is your best pitching attribute. Look for pitchers with the highest hits per nine attribute that you possibly can. This will lead to more success. Speed is also what I would consider one of those necessary things. You want more speed on your ball club. This is going to help you both offensively and defensively. And if you're playing in an offline mode like franchise, it's going to lead to more enhanced abilities on both sides of the ball. Your fielding is going to get better, your contact and power are going to get better because it leads to more extra base opportunities once you put the ball in play. So that would be my best recommendations in total for both modes: contact, power, speed, hits per nine. Those are your king attributes. And again, discipline is not going to help you very much. I know they just won the World Series in franchise mode. It is not going to help you in competitive or ranked play, but if you can and you're looking to build a team in franchise mode for a quick rebuild, maybe like a World Series project where you're trying to go from worst to first, get some players that have high discipline or the highest discipline you can. These players will get on base for you and they will win you ball games more consistently. So again, not much of a draw for ranked players for discipline, even though this is ultimately what rang supreme in this franchise. But for offline players, definitely get some players with good discipline. The lower discipline they have, the more they're going to strike out. Next up are what I would consider the secondary attributes. These are things that you want to look for secondary after you've fulfilled all of the essentials: contact, power, speed, and hits per nine. So first we have the vision attribute. Again, this is going to help with your timing windows if you're an online player, but if you're offline, it's not really going to help you out that much. This is more purely from a gameplay standpoint if you're playing humans, like ranked competitive or things like that. Fielding is also very good. I wouldn't say it's like the main thing that you want to look for, but you can definitely get some fielders that are going to help you out in both ranked and offline play. This is proven with this franchise. Again, look for contact, power first, and then maybe somebody who's good at fielding. But a fielding team on its own isn't going to win you too many ball games if they don't have other attributes to go with it. For pitching, a good secondary attribute would be walks per nine, and this again just kind of helps with your timing window for pitching, but it's not going to be as helpful as hits per nine. Once you've satisfied that hits per nine, like if you're playing ranked and looking for cards, you want as close to 125 as possible, and then walks are going to help you. The other per nines don't really seem to matter that much. So home runs per nine, Ks per nine, and stamina, they're going to be better if you have better attributes, but like ultimately aren't going to be as consequential as hits or walks per nine. I've also come to the conclusion that pitching clutch is fairly important. You do want a pitching clutch attribute that's fairly good as opposed to fairly low. For offline players, this can be kind of a hard thing to find. You're not going to get a lot of prospects that have high pitching clutch, but if you can get somebody in like a draft or something whose pitching clutch is above a 60, I would say that's a good secondary, maybe kind of average player to look out for in like free agency, something that some teams might undervalue. Now we move on to the next stage of things that I don't believe are very consequential, but may help you just a teeny bit. Not quite like a secondary tier, but enough where there's just a small difference that might be made if you're playing. So for hitting, you do have the clutch factor in the switch hitting ability. You're not going to win very many ball games if you have hitters like this in simulated play on their own, but I do know some ranked players that really like having clutch and switch hitters. This is one of the last things you should be looking for when building a team in ranked competitive play. In some regards, there's also going to be some argument for arm strength and arm accuracy, but a lot of that, if you're playing ranked competitive, is based on user inputs. It kind of can be influenced a bit based on the player that you're using, but from what I've seen here in the simulated play, not very much. For pitching, it does really help to have better control. We're still not exactly or entirely sure what pitching control does. This team was very close to 500 in simulated play, so it does help out a little bit. Maybe something with the par if you're doing like pinpoint pitching or something like that. But, walks per nine is probably a better attribute to look for as opposed to control. And I know there's some ranked players that swear by velocity. Having the ability to throw 102 is going to just let you strike out some lower skilled players who might not know what they're doing because they can't react in time. So for those of you who are playing against ranked opponents who have lower reaction, higher velocities are going to help. In simulated play, not so much, and you do need to have some other things built around it. Break is also very similar. If you know how to control break and you know that your opponent is going to swing at anything in the dirt, definitely get some pitchers with higher break. Knuckleballers, you could kind of make the same argument as well. Like, there aren't very many knuckleballers in the game. If you can find somebody in franchise mode who throws knuckleball and you play a lot of the games, that might be fun. Computer is different from an actual live player, but getting some knuckleballers on your team in simulated play, while they won 81 games out of 162 and we're a 500 team, I don't really know how much to read into that. So lastly, let's go into the things that are completely inconsequential. I would say bunting and drag bunting is one of those things. If you're playing simulated play, they're going to bunt anyway, and there isn't like too much of a difference between skilled bunters and non-skilled bunters. The only people I can really think of who might be able to pull this off are like Juan Pierre or Kenny Lofton, but you're not going to really build a whole team identity around it. You can be cheesy and maybe win some things, but that's primarily based on speed, not on bunting ability. I would also say pitch blocking is not very consequential in this game. It was a few years ago if you had a lot of people with low blocking or who are out of position. I didn't really see it much in this franchise where blocking influenced a whole lot, so don't look for that. Base stealing ability and aggressiveness, again, please do not look too far into these, especially for simulated play. These are going to run your team dry in simulated play. I know there are going to be some speed players out there who, again, swear by doing bunt cheese or stealing bases, but again, a lot of those are primarily based on speed. If it helps, maybe get somebody with better bunting ability or base running ability. Base running aggressiveness, though, just really does not matter too much. It doesn't even help your team in terms of like how much they win ball games. I really just can't really think of a good reason for base running aggressiveness. I think it leads to more wasted outs in simulated play than it does like getting the extra base and being successful. If you have good base running ability, that's mostly dependent upon how much you can steal bases off of like the throw of the pitch or, you know, reading the pitcher itself. But I don't really think aggressiveness really helps you get from first to third any easier. So those are the final conclusions for the All or Nothing League. I hope this kind of helps you out a little bit, make some differences between simulated play and actual like ranked online play. There are a few attributes who are completely different depending on which version of the game you're playing. Discipline being the biggest one, and we saw that with the team winning the World Series. Discipline in ranked competitive means almost nothing, except for like check swings, but in offline play means a whole heck of a lot. We'd love to know what you guys thought of this series, or if there's anything that you might have some questions about, like unsure how it worked, or if there's something that we might have missed in the franchise itself, please let us know. This, again, is probably going to be the last episode of the All or Nothing League or anything similar, and we think that we've pretty much drawn all of the conclusions that we can from doing a franchise build like this. There are some things that are a bit out of our control as well, such as quirks that we are unable to really test in a franchise or simulated matter. So this was a very long final episode. We watched a full game, went over the awards, talked over what the attributes did and what they'd grant you competitively or in simulated play. Again, thank you for watching this series. This is Kasabi signing off for the All or Nothing League. We'll see you with more content here as the offseason progresses into MLB 23. We'll see ya.